welcome back to Mama Tales. As always, I'm so happy that you've taken the time to listen to this podcast. I never take it for granted at all. As you can probably hear through my nasally voice, I'm fighting off a nasty cold. So I held off recording this part of the episode to the very, very last minute in hopes that it will clear, but it still hasn't. I also don't have as much energy as I would have loved to have to record this specific episode, but I still have to push through it because, consistency is key, and this episode has to go out tomorrow at 9 a.m. So I'll keep moving on. I'm so jazzed about this episode because this is the first time I'll be featuring someone else on the podcast, which is amazing. It's a milestone that I am very happy to check off my box. So today's mama is someone who is a very good friend of mine. We met back in uni, and at some point I worked with her husband as well. She is also a new mom, so it's great that we get to share this part of our life as well. She actually reached out a long time ago, probably after the first episode of the podcast, and said she'd want to be part of it. So that was really amazing because what it did is it helped me justify the existence of this space by how being willing to share her story and amplify her message. In her story, I got to learn so many things. Despite us having the same end, aka our children are here, our journeys couldn't be more different. In comparison to hers, my pregnancy and birth journey might as well have been a walk in the park. So it was really humbling to hear just what she went through to be where she is right now. So her story will be coming up in a few minutes. But before we get there, I just wanted to do a bit of reflection on the past episode. I felt so heavy for a proper good number of days after recording and publishing it. And I think I talked about this on Instagram. You know what? I didn't know why, but in retrospect, I think I got to face that part of my journey in a more reflective way. And I quickly learned that I wasn't necessarily over it, at least not in the way that I thought that I was. So everything about that just felt so heavy. Like I didn't even have that energy to share much about it online, at least not immediately. And a lot of what I was kind of going through were also inspired or came out when we were recording this story. So I'll do a little bit more of the reflection at the end of it so that you can also have some context. And then I'll also share some things that I learned from interacting with a few amazing moms on Instagram after I posted that very long vent on postnatal care and what it should really be. In other news, I'm really looking forward to next week. My husband and I have decided to spend some time away from home and take our little one to Watamu, so that's in the Kenyan coast. Let me tell you, I am properly burnt out. I have been burnt out for weeks now. I have so much on my plate, and I think one time, maybe 2 weeks ago, I just completely broke down and I just couldn't anymore. I knew it was bad when I got into the car to go buy something at a nearby shop. It wasn't really far. And trust me, I used the longest route to get there. I kept praying for traffic. I felt so much peace in that car, just driving in silence. I had absolutely no desire to go back home, like none at all, and that thought scared me because it just didn't feel right, and I don't want to get into it right now, but let's just say that all this was caused, which was a combination of things, but the biggest thing was that, my plate is already full as it is. So as a full-time stay-at-home, work from home mother and wife, and something was going to change in a way that I'll get even more responsibility on me, and that just made me freak out. The other thing is that I didn't know how to communicate this with my husband, tell him that I'm actually just drowning in all of this. When I got home from that unnecessarily long car ride, I began to unravel and take it out on him unfairly. It still took me so long, I think it might have even been a week later, to recognize exactly what was going on and really sit down and talk to him. He insisted on us taking a break, which is great because we really don't take breaks with how our work situation is set up. We are both contractors. So breaks are expensive. You work at an hourly rate. In spite of this, there's literally nothing that's keeping us from changing our environment. So we'll just take a week away from home, enjoy the sea breeze, be waited on. Oh, yes. Just have people bring things to you all the time, which would be great. And just carry on with things. It would also be really good to see like Kale actually interact with the beach, the pool, and all that. Like now that she's like super mobile and aware. So that trip is coming up, and I simply cannot wait. Anyways, that's enough about me for now. So let's jump right into Ruth's story. Since this was the very first time I was doing this, it isn't exactly perfect, at least on my end. She did an amazing job. In her story, you'll hear me chiming in here and there or mumble in the back. Please ignore that. The most important part of it is that the story still shines through. So let's hear from Ruth.
My name is Ruth Muthoni. I'm 29 years old. I'm married for 2 years and a few months, and I have one child, a son. His name is Zani. He was born in January. So yeah, life before baby was good. It was fun. I got pregnant on the onset of COVID. It was just when it was starting, so we didn't really know like how severe it will get. We'd just gone into the first lockdown, and we were thinking, by May everything will be okay. But my pregnancy was planned. It was very intentional. My husband and I planned the time around which we wanted to get pregnant, and it happened as in God fulfilled the plan, I'd say, because it just happened at the time, I guess, we planned. So I'm over there Saturday morning, seated on the toilet, and then I'm like, I'm testing, yeah? And my husband was asleep, and then it turned out positive. Like, there was no, like, special announcement of how, oh my goodness, I didn't get a chance to do all those, because I was so surprised. Like, I didn't expect it to happen that fast, yeah? So I'm like, I'm shouting from the toilet, I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. Oh my God. Anyway, so yeah. It was an exciting time. And I remember we even shared with family. And then I felt great. Like, I was like, this is what it feels like to be pregnant. I feel really good. And I remember because I'd already started, because we'd planned the time we wanted to get pregnant. We'd started this whole eating healthy thing, exercising and all that. Yeah. So I was like, I feel great. I can continue with working out and I can continue with eating really healthy. I even had this whole diet plan of how I'm going to be taking like a fruit and veggie smoothie every morning. Very healthy food because I want a very healthy pregnancy. Okay. I started spotting. So when I went to hospital, my gyna gave me what was it called? I think she gave me progesterone, and that was the genesis of my very, very severe morning sickness. I was just being given a pill a day, but I remember just from the first day I took that pill, I couldn't stand anything. As in that's when my morning sickness hit me so badly. I wanted as in to have a very healthy pregnancy, like to eat really well, not being able to eat anything at all whatsoever. I think the only thing I could stand was cold water. I used to be asked, what do you want? What can you stand? And I'd tell them the only thing I can stand is cold water and air. Like I could only take in air and water. So of course I started losing weight. I was even wondering what my baby was surviving on, but the gyna was very reassuring because you see the pregnancy is very young. The fetus is also really tiny and most of what they need actually is folic acid, and I was able to take in the folic acid with the water. So initially, my husband would make me... So there's one other thing I could stand, which was banana smoothies. So just milk and banana, very cold. And I'd take that every morning, and I'd take it and vomit it immediately after. And he'd make another one, and I'd take it and vomit it immediately after. And we'd say that, I think, hopefully I retained something. I took that for maybe the first 2 months. That's all I was taking every day. And then it got to a point where I could take the banana smoothie as well as like a few slices of very cold mango. That also went on for maybe a few days or weeks. And then I couldn't stand the mango anymore. So it started tasting funny. At the same time, I couldn't stand the weirdest things. Like I stopped watching TV shows that I like and I started watching things that I've never watched before. Like I started watching Survivor, Amazing Race. Yeah, like that's what I could stand. So in between Survivor and Amazing Race, I was playing games on my phone. Those are the things I could stand. Like, because I got, it's called hyperemesis. gravidarum. I think that's how it's said. And I think it affects everything, all your senses. For sight, of course, now the TV shows I was watching. Sound, there's this neighbor, like, do you know, I even moved houses because as in the washing machine was on the whole day and I couldn't stand the sound of that thing. Like I felt like I could commit a crime to get her to stop. Like what was she washing every day, you know? So that was sound, right? That made me move houses. And then of course taste. I couldn't eat anything other than the smoothies and the mango. So one time my doctor, just a doctor who's been my doctor for a very long time, she called me and she asked me, so Ruth, how's the pregnancy? I told her about the very bad morning sickness. And then she asked me, how's your diet? Then I told her my diet. Then she was like, Ruth, that's not enough. As in, what are you taking for sodium? What are you taking for minerals? Yeah. I think you need to be admitted. That was like the onset of COVID during lockdown, you know, all these new cases. You remember how scary it was, yeah? And I was like, no, I can't be admitted. Then she'd call me and like try and insist, Ruth, you need to get admitted. I'm like, nope, I'm not getting admitted. So one time she just called me and told me, you're not taking any minerals, Ruth. Start licking salt. You need the sodium. So now I started licking salt. Then she was like, and for the minerals, you need like some kind of soup. So anything, just try stand anything, just one thing and take that thing every day. It's okay. So now I started taking soup. So it was boiled potatoes and maybe skuma, boiled potatoes and kunde with salt, then blended. So my mom would started making me the soups. And then I live quite a distance from my mom, so my husband would pick the soups for me every day. Yeah, so that would be like he'd pick the soup in the evening. That's my dinner and my lunch for the next day. And I'm telling you, it was being served in like a small bowl, and I'm just urged to take a few tablespoons, and I'll be okay. Yeah, so I'd take the soup and I'd vomit.
Oh gosh.
and we just say I've retained something, you know.
Yeah,
and then
just
now that's
something,
graduated to anything. Yeah, so that graduated to me eating boiled beans with now skuma, maybe a side of boiled potatoes. Yeah, so I'd take it and vomit. So yeah, I think the only time I wasn't vomiting was when I was asleep at night. I was so exhausted, so I'd just sleep. There's no time in my pregnancy I experienced insomnia because I was too tired. Around maybe second trimester, halfway through second trimester, I just moved houses. That's when morning sickness started dying down. And how it died down, just one time I asked, my now was having, by the way, another thing, I never used to eat around people because of course my husband's diet was just a normal diet, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't want him to eat near me because I don't want to see it, I don't want to smell it. So I never even used to know what he was eating by the way. So but one time I know he was eating beef and something, and I was like, by the way, can I just smell the nyama? So he brought for me like a piece of meat on a spoon. Then I smelled it and I was like, I think I can lick it. Then I licked it. Then I was like, I think I can chew it. Then I chewed it, and then now that from then on, I started taking like very small amounts of beef. So I don't want to experiment with anything else. So just beef and rice, and cooked the exact same way it had been cooked. That when I was tasting it in the beginning. Then later I got the courage to now try other things because my mom was telling me I wouldn't know if I can stand something unless I tried, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So now that's when I started trying other things, and then for the rest of the pregnancy my diet was fairly somewhat normal. And then I think the worst thing that I experienced during my morning sickness was comments around why are you not eating? You're going to get an underweight baby. So I'm like,
no,
I can't eat. I'm not trying to get a sick baby, but I really truly cannot eat. So I think pregnancies are different. So someone who hasn't experienced, let's say in this case, morning sickness, this very severe morning sickness, may not be able to understand someone who's experiencing the very severe morning sickness. So like for you, Sally, if for instance you used to eat very well, for instance, it will make sense to you, like, why are you, like, you can't eat anything, like really truly you can only drink water, you know. So I guess that brought about all a little judgment, I'd say. I'm grateful. My husband was very encouraging, and you see the guy now we were seeing, she'd tell me, Ruth, if you're only able to take, let's say, black tea tomorrow, then take black tea the whole day, you know. Like she'd say how she wasn't really over pushing me. Like I guess she's a guy now, so she's seen all these cases. So she was like, just take what you can take, but take something. And my husband would be like, oh, so you can take the banana smoothie. I'll make that all day. I'll make that for you the whole day. So aside from all that morning sickness, the second half of second trimester and the first half of my third trimester were good. I think that was the honeymoon of my pregnancy. Because then now I was eating, and because now I'd lost 14 kgs. So me, I was like, bring it on. I was having ice cream every day. Yeah. I was eating anything and everything. Like I gave myself the freedom to eat whatever I want, whether it is nutritious or it's not nutritious. Like I'm just going to eat it. Then I'd say maybe from around week 30, 31 there. Of my pregnancy, I just started experiencing some pain in my, I think now I later came to find out it's called the coccyx. I don't know. It's in the pelvic bone somewhere, and it's the kind of pain. It's a pain you feel whenever you sit. So long as I'm seated, I'm in pain, and when I'm standing from the sitting position, I'm in pain. And it's not kidogo pain, like it's a lot of pain, because now that's what caused me to just not go to work anymore, because now I had to be either in a standing position, walking position, or lying down position. And you see, standing and walking, I can only do that for so long when I'm heavy. So now I just came back home. I'd do my walks in the house and lie down for most of the day because of the pain. And this actually continued even after I gave birth. So that made breastfeeding really hard in the beginning. Because now they have to sit to breastfeed. And I'm in so much pain. So I kept on changing positions, But the pain went away eventually. It went away maybe when my baby was 6 weeks. Let me back up kidogo and say, so I gave birth on a Tuesday, it's 26th of January, on the Sunday before my mom had come to visit me at home. So my mom is a nurse by profession. So when she came to visit, we were working on something, just work stuff. She kept on telling me, I remember that evening, now when she was heading home, she said, Ruth and Maina, let me pray for you guys, because I think we're expecting baby soon. So my mom, kumbe, being a nurse, she'd noticed I was in labor. So me, I'm in denial, like, no, I'm not in labor. Like my due date is like due 31st January, and according to the app, it's Feb 3rd. Right? So no, of course I'm not in labor anyway. So she'd noticed. So she was like, so I remember in her prayer, she was like, God, I pray that you may deliver this child at his appointed time. May you give them peace. Those kinds of things that are just alluding to, alluding to me being in labor. And she didn't say anything more, and she left. Then the next day, that was on Monday, I remember waking up and I told Maina, because I'd been having rather intense, what are they called? Braxton Hicks. So on that Monday, I woke up and I remember telling my husband, I know I've been having this Braxton Hicks, but today feels different. It just feels different. It's different. He was like, yeah. But then you're not in labor. Like, someone who's in labor doesn't look like you, because of all these stories you see here and all these shows you see, so
it's dramatic.
labor, it's not me seated down. Exactly, it's dramatic. It's not me seated down talking and telling him how I'm not feeling okay, by the way. Anyway, I decided, let me just time the Braxton Hicks, right? And then, because even if it's labor, see, I'll go to hospital when the contractions are closer together.
Either way,
So I just started timing them. So that morning, the contractions were 30 minutes. They were contractions actually, and it started from Sunday. My mom knew. I didn't know. So I started timing the contractions, and they were 30 minutes apart. So every 30 minutes I'd get some intense Braxton Hicks. Contractions. And then, then I'm okay. Then I also remember that day I had TMI. I had a bit of loose stool, not just a little bit loose, which is also a sign that you're getting into labor. I was still in denial, like me and my husband, total denial. Okay. So that evening, I remember not wanting to move around so much so that I don't overinduce. I didn't want to overinduce the Braxton Hicks. Remember, in my mind, they're Braxton Hicks, and they're making me uncomfortable. Okay, so I don't want to feel them so much. So I'm not going to continue moving around unnecessarily. Then that night is when now I started timing them, and they were 15 minutes apart. Then towards the morning, they were like 8 minutes apart. So early in the morning, by 7 a.m., we were in hospital. In hospital, of course, they asked me if I'd spotted, I think, and I had. So now because of that, they had to now take the, what do you call it? The measuring of how
dilated you are.
Yeah, how dilated I am, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
at that time I was maybe by around 9 a.m. I was 3 centimeters dilated. So I was like, oh my God. So I am in labor. Okay. This is how labor feels like. Okay, this is new. I remember being able to do things for myself. Like it didn't feel so dramatic, to be honest. For me, my experience, it really wasn't that dramatic. Got admitted into a labor room to just continued laboring, and then by 2 p.m. I was 7 centimeters dilated. The doctors were like, the dilation is progressing really quickly, as in you're doing really well, so let's just break the waters because your water hasn't broken. So that's when, like, I think also just because of watching all these YouTube videos, and I imagined that this whole natural process where the water will break itself. I mean, my body should know what to do. Yeah, so when the water is ready to break, it will break, right? I remember just arguing with the doctors, like, I really do want them to break the water. I was refused. I was like, no, my water will break itself naturally. So my mom knew I had prolonged labor. I did not know. And she did not want to scare me. So she's like, Ruth, you have to allow them to break the water, as in just, like now she's trying to convince me. She's trying to be calm. She's not showing me how worried she is, but she's like, no, Ruth, you have to let them break the waters. It's not safe, Ruth. So she managed to convince me to have them break the water. So I let a nurse break the water. Like, you just feel the warmth of the water. You don't feel any pain whatsoever. I did not feel any pain. But now that's when they discovered he pooped. So, of course, immediately the theatre people were sent to the labor room, and they took me to theatre because it was unsafe. You see, first, I've had prolonged labor. Right?
Yeah.
And then the baby has pooped. Oh, and then I remember now towards the end of my laboring, I was taken to theatre, yes, immediately. But between the time I was taken to surgery and the surgery happening, there's time. And at that time, because my water had been broken, the labor progressed so quickly. Like, I was in so much, I started being in, like, I was in not so much pain, like the pressure of the labor. I don't know if you understand. Because mine wasn't pain. It was pressure. It was so much pressure. They took a bit of time before they operated. And I was wondering why, because I kept on telling them, I'm going to push. Like, the pressure is too much. I'm going to push. I also remember feeling that my baby wasn't moving. At that time, I could feel, no, he's not moving. So anyway, I was taken to surgery, the surgery room, and they operated on me, and the baby came out, and of course I was shown the baby over the curtain they put when you're having CS. And I remember, like, he cried, yes, thank God, immediately, but his cry was not like that beautiful cry, that loud,
super strong
yes,
cry.
that super strong cry. So he had a cry, and he cried well, but it was not a strong cry. Then the pediatrician received him, and I remember them just wiping him and putting oxygen. So I was like, is everything okay? The nurses and the doctors who were working on me were beyond the curtain. Then I had someone with me. So now his aunt was reassuring me. He's like, yeah, as in, that's totally normal. Yeah, as in, babies are given oxygen. So I was like, oh, okay, that's normal. So I believed him. And I think I needed to believe him, because if I don't believe him, now I start seeing at him, my baby is in distress,
Yeah, you don't want that image.
I don't need that at that time. Yeah. So he was taken out. Oh, so he was brought to me. Yeah, he was brought to me when I was just there laying down and being closed up, and then he was brought to me. I just looked at him. I kissed him. He looked at me. I know they can't see anything at that age, but we looked at each other and we loved on each other. And then he was taken away. Now that's when my husband and my mom and his mom met the baby. And then after surgery, now I was taken to recovery. And my husband still couldn't come see me in recovery, but I could be taken out of recovery to see him. Just immediately outside recovery. So at that time, that's when he showed me photos of the baby. So the baby had the oxygen thing. So I remember asking him, why does he have that mask. Then he's like, I don't know, it's normal, don't worry, as in he's okay, he just needs a little help breathing. And he's in the nursery, he's good. I'm spending time with him in the nursery, everything is okay. So now again, because of these ideals we place in our minds, I kept on urging the nurses, please take me to my room, I want to see my baby, please take me to my room, I have to see my baby. And then they kept on telling me, we're preparing everything for you. Eventually, yes, I was taken to, in the evening, it took hours.
What time was he born? Oh, you don't remember
I have no
that?
idea. He was born at 3:43, but then I ended up going to my room, I think close to 7 p.m. I'm at past 7 p.m. And I had this idea of how when your baby is born, it's called the golden hour, these things you read about. So you're going to breastfeed immediately, lol. Yeah, so I finally go to my room and the baby is brought to me. And the baby, because he'd now been in the nursery the whole time, so we noticed he's not breathing okay. He wasn't breathing okay. I could tell he was really struggling. So I called the nurse and I told him, hey, this baby, and I struggled. He's struggling to breathe. What's going on? And then the nurse, the one who brought him was like, when I took him from the nursery, because, that's how he was born, struggling to breathe. So, but then I was having spent time in the nursery, the warmth, the perfect conditions. He'd seemingly recovered. And then now when they brought him to me, again in my room, he's not breathing. Okay, so they took him away. Then the next day, so I slept. The next day in the morning, I was like, I want to go see my baby. I walked to the nursery. I went there, I saw him. But then he looked okay. Like when he was being given the perfect conditions, he was okay.
He was fine.
And because I hadn't started breastfeeding, I remember the nurses mixing formula and giving the baby formula. And then when they gave him the formula, he immediately... it's not puking, it's like he spit it out. Then the nurse was like, labda huyu haskizani na nan. So I was like, but then you pushed the formula into his mouth, as in he's just been born. You can't just conclude all of a sudden that he haskizani na nan. And the first thing he's taking, probably giving him drop by drop would have helped, as opposed to pushing the formula into his mouth and concluding and I understand they have like all these babies to feed, but you see, my baby is my baby. Like, even give me the formula to feed him myself. So by that time, the milk hadn't still in my mind. And I'm going to talk about this. But in my mind, the milk hadn't still come in, and so now he's going to take formula. Okay, so I went back to the room, and then that evening, so now this is Thursday evening. I've given birth on Tuesday.
On Tuesday,
night in the nursery. Wednesday, I've gone to see him. So Wednesday evening, he's brought to me again. So when he was brought to me, he wasn't okay. So they kept on telling me, but tukimta kwa nursery yako sawa. But now when they bring him to me, he's not okay. So now they decided, let them add a heater into our room, as in trying to create the perfect conditions for him. And he still wasn't okay. So now it's like maybe it's 8-9 p.m. This baby, he's not okay at all, and they're not doing enough about it. And there's only so much I can do. I've just been operated on. I'm lying on the bed telling them, as in he's not okay, do something about it. So my husband told them to call the doctor. The doctor was called. She said that she'll be there in the morning. This was the receiving doctor, Makiu. So she'll be there so she knew that the baby had been born in distress. She'll be there in the morning, take the baby to the nursery room, keep the baby in a warm environment, and don't feed the baby. And do suction. Do suction and don't feed the baby. Okay, so they went, they did. Maina tells me, so because Maina is the one who went with them. They went and did the suction thing. He tells me, like, he can't tell me what happened because I don't want to know. So then after that, he's been left in the nursery for the perfect condition thing. So Maina came back to the room. So we're wondering, what do we do? Like, he's not okay, and the receiving doctor is not there for him. So we started calling the nurse, and asking him, is there any other doctor who can see? No, first we asked for the number of the receiving doctor. So if you can call her directly and just find out, like, why are you not here? Why can't someone step in for you? She was rude. She didn't listen to us. That's when my husband just went mad. He went hysteric, started shouting and telling the nurses, as in, you have to do something. now, like with immediate effect. If you don't do something straight, he just started spewing out all these threats. And I got scared because now as we're all thinking about the, he's not breathing. That's when I called my mom, and it was during curfew, by the way. And I told her the situation, how it is, just because she's a nurse. I thought maybe she'd know some kind of protocol that we can follow. I don't know.
Yeah.
My mom was like, the baby is not breathing well, and they're not attending to him. That is unacceptable. Let me tell you, she took her bag. My dad followed her. My brother followed her. They came to the hospital. See, my baby is not admitted. I'm the one who's admitted, right? So they were like, oh, so you guys won't treat the baby? We are going with him. Too many police in nyuma yetu. So they started, as in, now they were ready to leave. But then, and all this whole time, my husband is just quarreling the nurses and the staff. That's when we were called for the head nurse. And the head nurse is the only one apparently who had the authority to now call. No, she came. We told her, we explained the situation exactly as it was. And then she said, okay, I've understood you. I've heard you. I'm going to call a doctor for you, another doctor. That's how we met our wonderful pediatrician. He couldn't understand why the baby wasn't supposed to be fed. So because he came, he checked all his vitals, he checked everything. Then he was like, you have a hungry baby, please feed the baby. So he was given formula. He was allowed to feed, and he became much better. And the next day, we were discharged. We came home with the baby, and I still didn't have milk, quote unquote. I didn't have milk. Macu in the hospital, because the lactation nurse had come, she checked on me. You know how they check? Yeah. Then there was milk. But in my mind, because it's not coming out splashing, there's no milk. Yeah. So because now when I'd been discharged, the pediatrician had just said, breastfeed, then top up with formula. Breastfeed, put the baby on the breast and top up with formula. So that's what I'd do. So that day, that was so we've been discharged, and then now Thursday we spent the day and the nights were okay. Then Friday, I noticed the baby was lethargic. He's almost unresponsive, doesn't want to feed, and he's not sleeping. So he's just there. And his temperature was low. He was 34 degrees, I think. So I told the doctor, the very nice pediatrician, he's called Dr. Bill Kigathi. So I told him my baby's symptoms. Then he was like, that's how the baby is. Please bring him to me right now. I'm in such and such a place. So we took the baby to him. Dr. Bill is a very good manager. I'll explain. So he was like, so I remember when he was holding the baby, like he's lifting his hands and they're just falling. You see, he's just lethargic. Dr. Bill was like, what's wrong? What's wrong, baby? What's up? So I knew something was wrong. He brought him to me to breastfeed. He's not feeding. So he told us to go to hospital, do certain tests, Then he said, depending on how the tests will be, we might need to admit, but don't worry, maybe even we won't need to admit. Then my husband knew we are being admitted. Because you see, the doctors, they don't say such things loosely, because I've just given birth and he knows the mind I need to have. He was managing me. So he went to hospital where my tiny little baby got a prick. 2 pricks actually. Really, really cried. And so the tests were done. So now the other managing part, Dr. Bill came to hospital. He met us there when the tests were out. He didn't show us the tests. He was like, baby is fine, baby is fine. But, I'm thinking, just to ward off any infections, I'm going to put a cannula in the line, then, just to manage, to kind of ward off any infection. But otherwise, I'm just trying to establish a good breastfeeding relationship between you and the baby. So he made it sound like he was admitting us
easy,
because of me. It's because of me. That's okay. So if him is okay, me, I'm okay. So now that's finally, when it was a very long process, but hearing him cry from the cannulation that brought in now the milk properly, ikakuja tu kabisa. And so when he latched, oh my god, he fed. He fed and fed and fed. And then now finally when we went to the room, I asked the nurses, now the admitting nurses, I asked them, by the way, what are we being admitted for? Because I still hadn't believed that we were just being admitted to establish a good breastfeeding relationship. That doesn't make sense. So the nurses were like, hey, the doctor didn't tell you. I was like, no, the doctor didn't tell me. So you're being admitted for neonatal sepsis. Wow. Oh, no. Okay, so I googled what neonatal sepsis is. Apparently, it's sepsis. So, it affects all his organs. Infections, I could see he had jaundice. I could see my baby is not okay. And then so the treatment began. So that's what the IV
Doc was
for.
giving, antibiotics.
Because he was giving antibiotics. He knows there's an infection, a really bad infection,
Yeah.
and it needs to be taken care of. I wouldn't have the mind to breastfeed him. I'd have been too worried. Yeah,
Exactly.
and I now just getting into breastfeeding. So the baby is okay. We got discharged on Sunday, and we haven't been to hospital since, except for clinic. Yeah, he recovered fully. I thank God. So just getting into breastfeeding, I wish I educated myself about breastfeeding. I thought it's natural. I mean, why would I not be able to breastfeed my baby? Why do I need to do extra things to be able to breastfeed? And there are babies who never latch, meaning you have to pump for them. And there's milk that never comes out, meaning you have to give formula. And oh my God, there is so much shame around formula. I mean, I'm happy to breastfeed my baby. I'm so happy. That was my goal, and I thank God, because it is not a natural, obvious thing to breastfeed a baby.
Yeah.
But the judgment around formula, I don't understand it. Like, when I'm walking around with my baby, who can tell whether he's formula fed or breastfed? You see, I didn't know that, which is why I'm saying I wish I educated myself. I didn't know that breastfeeding, first of all, it's a mind thing. So you have to have the mind, to say, you have to tell yourself you have milk. 1, 2, you have to believe it when you tell yourself you have milk. 3, you have to stay hydrated, eat a very well balanced diet, relax. Another thing, you need to be stress free.
Exactly.
You need to be totally stress free. That's one thing that I did have. I did not have the mind to breastfeed, so I didn't believe I have milk. So I kept on telling myself I don't have milk.
You didn't have milk.
So I've been told to top up with formula. Like, if my baby is feeding and he's crying, I tell myself he's not full. Let me top up with formula. I just give up. First of all, I blame myself totally for not educating myself. I will emphasize that, right? Because had I educated myself, nothing would have interfered with my breastfeeding journey at all. Then, can I just say that for first time moms, and I think even just for all moms, a mother needs you to support her as she cares for her baby. I need you to care for me as I care for my baby. That's what I need. I was actually reading something somewhere. Let me just give me a minute. I look for it. It says, so I saw this on some post on Instagram, and it says that what we have learned through research is that a child's well-being almost solely relies on the happiness and emotional stability of their primary caregiver. I did not have that kind of, I did not feel like I had that kind of support that I needed in that moment. Unfortunately, I didn't feel like I was being taken care of to take care of my baby. I felt like, naturally, everyone is there for the baby. Because when you're pregnant, you also do your own research, and you've kind of set guidelines of how you want to raise your baby, and what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. And I don't imagine anyone has the right to come and tell you, oh, by the way, don't do that. Or by the way, do it this way. I get it that you need advice. Like, you as the mother, by the way, one thing that I actually didn't know this, I as the mother, I reserve the right. See, I'm the primary caregiver. I reserve the right for whatever I choose to do with my baby, because there's no way I'm trying to harm my baby. Anything 100%. I do for the best of my baby. So support my decisions about my baby. So first of all, I think I felt like any decision I was making about my baby was being questioned. I felt like, because there's already this assumption that I'm a first-time mom, so I know nothing. So those who have been mothers and know so much are the ones who are going to make the decisions for the baby. Because remember, I know nothing. It's my first time. Why should I make any decisions? And the worst part is that I believed that. So I started believing I don't know what's good for my baby. Let's say, for instance, if I decided to apply olive oil after bath time for my baby, so it would be like, olive oil, like, why are you using olive oil? You're supposed to be using this and this and this, which is what maybe another mother used for their baby, they think is okay. And it's not like I wake up, like, I know this is a very delicate human being, so it's not like I wake up and I'm like, let me grab this item and use it on the baby and experiment and see how it's going to work out. Like, as in, I've done research. I've been pregnant for 9 months. You know, I remember receiving judgment for not being able to breastfeed immediately after giving birth. So, like, I remember being told, as in, I have to have milk immediately, like with immediate effect. Can you breastfeed?
Yeah.
And it's not, as in, it's like it's like how you can't tell your body, can you get a period right now?
Just now, yeah.
Have a period immediately. So it's the same thing with milk. Like there should be education around it. Like for example, if you give birth through CS, it's there. The milk is there, yes, but it needs a bit of motivation for some people to come out. And also, my baby just needed like 3. Their tummies are so tiny when they're born.
Yes.
So even those 2 little drops that are coming out are enough. So mine is just to latch the baby and have him stimulate the body to produce more as he continues to grow more. I think the worst thing that I experienced was being blamed for my baby being sick because I'm not breastfeeding. He aspirated. It's called aspirating the meconium. Like, how could I have controlled?
That,
it happened.
It happened,
and he needs. And if the solution was breast milk, then he wouldn't be given antibiotics.
It could have been an IV full of breast milk. Yeah.
So that really affected my breastfeeding journey. And another thing that affected my breastfeeding journey was my baby, and since birth, has been extremely fussy on the breast.
Yeah.
Like, I latch him and he's just fussing. So I'd think, oh my God, I don't have milk. One time now, I was almost giving up. I had all these thoughts in my mind of, I'm not good enough, my decisions are not good enough. And I just remember my mom inviting me back home. Come, I care for you. Come, I help you with this journey. I bring you, like, she noticed. Again, she's in the medical field. So she knows how easy it is to get postpartum depression. And she could see me walking down that alley. So she was like, and she was not going to allow that to happen. So she was like, come, I take care of you. As you take care of your baby. So I went back home for a week. And in that week, I started believing in myself. I started believing in my decisions because even that time, my mom wasn't deciding anything for the baby. She was like, so what would you want about this? Then I make a decision, then we do that. So what would you, like, she healed me, I would say, in that time. And in that time also, she overfed me. So now, see, I've gone home. When I was being discharged, the pediatrician kind of like mapped out a diet for me. So he was like, don't do cereals, don't do potatoes and like sweet potatoes, don't do fermented porridge. If you're taking porridge, don't do mixed porridge, do one type of porridge. Like, if you've chosen the way of Wimby, do Wimby, see how it takes your baby, then do something else. Like, observe. Don't just eat and drink blindly. Observe the baby. So initially I started with the pediatrician's advice. But then remember, in my mind, I'm telling myself, so remember, Sally, I've been discharged, I've been told, eat this, don't eat that. But then in my mind, I'm telling myself, but I don't have milk. I need to eat things that produce milk. And remember, I have the milk all along. I have it in plenty. Because my baby is super fussy. I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't have milk. Then I've gone home, because now I guess this is what the older generation used to do for milk. So everyone is like, you were told not to eat cereals, but Njahe can't do anything. So let's try Njahe. It's going to make you have the milk. Have you heard about fenugreek seeds? I would just boil some fenugreek seeds and drink the water. How you'll have milk. So I started doing all these things to ongeza milk that was already there. So these things caused colic, and it was so bad. My baby was in so much pain. He was in so much pain. He'd pull his hair while crying. He'd fast. He'd fast so much. He wasn't sleeping. He had such extended wake times. He couldn't pass gas or pass poop without crying. He couldn't pass gas in his sleep. That was really hard. Colic was hard, and it was just all diet based. Just because I've listened to very well-meaning people telling me, "I will just add a bit of this to your diet. Your baby is going to be okay. Why are you not eating this?" So that's when now I went for a second opinion, because now my mom could see that my baby is not okay. Like, she couldn't tell. She couldn't like associate the diet with him not being okay. Because back in the day, that's what she ate for. Milk. So now she asked me to go for a second opinion. So of course I went for a second opinion. And I met a really, really wonderful pediatrician. Really, really wonderful pediatrician. Immediately I walked in, I told her, I'd even recorded videos of my baby trying to poo and all that.
Oh yeah.
So I showed her. Immediately she was just like, your baby has colic. And she was like, tell me about your diet. So I told her about my diet, and she was like, no, you're not supposed to be eating that. Eliminate this, and this. And then she even gave me like a more detailed diet plan, more than even what had been given when you're being discharged, you're just given the obvious one. Please avoid the other. But this one was a plan of even how to alleviate the gas in my baby. And I'd say that worked. I'd say it worked. It took a while, of course, because he had pockets of gas trapped in his belly. But eventually, anyway, the colic went away. And so he's okay. He's still learning to poop, but he's not in pain. And he doesn't have pockets of gas in his body anymore. And now I'm very mindful of my diet. I know we're past the 3 months where colic is very bad, but I don't want my baby to have a painful gas just because I can't control what I'm eating, So during colic, it was really hard to implement any kind of routines and schedules. It was just, I just had a mind for dealing with the colic. That's all I could do at that time. So, but then now beyond that, I'm trying to put the baby on a schedule, which I think I've sort of managed. Of course, there are days that fail. But for the most part, it happens exactly. For the most part, I think we are heading somewhere. We're good. Milk is good. I even have storage.
Nice.
For like when I need someone to feed him, and I'm not in a position to in that moment. He's healthy. He's growing so well. When he was sick, he lost so much weight, but he caught up. He's now like hitting his milestones as he should. He's always hit his milestones. Thank God.
At least
Thank God.
That.
These things, they're not very obvious.
It's true.
They're not that obvious. I think motherhood is just, it's a lot. Expectations versus reality.
Let me just laugh.
It's just so much. Oh my goodness. My friend described the 4th trimester as she describes it as a beautiful nightmare. Like you remember that nightmare you had, but you don't walk around thinking about, oh my God, that nightmare was so bad for the rest of your life. The main point I wanted to bring across in all this was that honestly, when you're thinking about how to help or support a new mom, consider thinking about as in giving actual support to the mother as she raises her child. Don't have very strong opinions around what she's doing. Support her decisions to bring across. And also, Sally, did you feel like it's very easy to get postpartum depression? Like, could you see it? Like, you can see it.
So close.
It's there. It's very close, but it's like you're being very strong. Like you're telling yourself, be strong. You can do this. You can overcome this. It gets to a point where you're trying to bring yourself out of that depressive state.
And it's good that you had your mom for that, because you need that one person to know, or rather tell, that you're slowly falling into that and just grab you out.
Yeah. PPD, postpartum. Oh God, please, mothers are to be respected.
Let me tell you, that story really stuck with me. And I remember immediately after I recorded it, I fell into the space that she was in. I think that's something that I really overlooked as I undertake this journey of sharing other mom stories, that eventually all those experiences and feelings will still be with me, and I need to learn how to navigate around that. So with Ruth, we continued talking after recording and got really into the nitty-gritty of everything around postnatal care, and more specifically postpartum depression. That part of the recording is obviously not here because neither of us felt strong enough to actually be that vulnerable. Hopefully one day the strength will come, but it's also beautiful to find someone who's in the same space with you and vent and create that sort of understanding and kind of help each other out. She had a tough journey, one that you would hope that at the end there should catch a break in terms of at least the support that she would receive once the baby came. Like I said earlier, she inspired my whole rant on like the postnatal care of moms because we really need it. I asked the moms in my community on Instagram on their experiences with this, and to no surprise, a lot of us didn't have any form, or rather didn't have proper postnatal care. However, there was one mom who stood out to me. Her name is Zane. She has an amazing Insta page called The Playroom KE, where she basically teaches us the millions of ways we can play and engage with our babies and understand them a little bit more. If you don't know the page I'm talking about, please check it out. I'll also leave the details in the description of this episode. Anyway, so she told me about how she navigated this space, and it's all comes, or rather stems from her culture, her Swahili culture. So essentially what happens there is that a maternal figure, so in her case it was her mom, will support the new mom for 40 days postpartum. In that period, all meals were prepared for her and delivered to her bed. You get postpartum massages with natural oils, and that can be done daily to help you with healing. Someone is there to chase away visitors who overstay their welcome, guide you on bathing the baby and dealing with things that come up like colic. And most importantly, her mom would also check on her mood to ensure that she doesn't fall into depression or, is full of anxiety. And I thought that was such an amazing system to envelop a mom in as she navigates life with a new baby, regardless if it's the first or the seventh baby. So I don't think it's a conversation that is necessarily over or has one solution whatsoever. But what I would say is, or what I would say should be the foundation of this entire thing, is that we should just learn to be sensitive with new moms and make sure that we're offering the right kind of support. So listen to them even when they don't use words. More often than not, they know exactly what they need. Okay, I think I'm done now. If you stuck around to the very end, thank you. Always grateful for that. You too can be part of this podcast like Ruth. It doesn't have to be about pregnancy and birth, but just what you're going through or went through at any one stage in your motherhood journey. I believe every stage is its own beast, and we can help each other cope and crush through them. So if you want to share your story on this podcast, please reach out to me. You can do so on Insta at Salimogore, or shoot me an email at mamatilspod@gmail.com. I'll leave all the details to how you can contact me in the description of this episode. Till next time, goodbye.